Today, I have the privilege of speaking with experienced media composer, YouTuber, and educator, Robert Rodriguez. Robert has worked with the highly renowned ThinkSpace Education School and also runs his own mentorship program. Robert's also worked with popular brands like Cinesamples, East West, Westwood Instruments, and Spitfire Audio. Robert, thank you for sharing your time today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat.
So, you seem to have a lot of projects going on. What are you focusing on right now?
Yeah, so uh right now, my number one focus has been the ThinkSpace Education orchestral composition boot camp. We are just finishing that up. Uh for those who don't know, I am one of the tutors for that program, and it's been it's been incredible. I've been doing this for uh almost 2 years now that this program has been going on, and it's just been getting better and better. So yeah, that's what I'm uh, most focused on right now.
And that's the 8 week program, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, ThinkSpace offers this like boot camp style. Just straight introduction to uh, orchestral music, cinematic type of music, and you go through the full basics of uh, writing for strings and winds and brass, and then taking a theme and developing it, and hopefully by the end of the boot camp, by the end of the 8 weeks, you can see where you started, and hopefully notice how far you've come. And it's been a fantastic experience. It The 8 weeks mark is now, like, it just happened, so it's very top of mind for me, and it's great seeing the student work.
As a tutor, are you learning a lot yourself?
Oh, absolutely. It's funny because even when I was a teacher for, general music in grade school kind of thing, I felt like I was learning more from prepping lessons, prepping the notes I wanted to give, prepping uh just exactly what I wanted to share with students that I thought would resonate more for their growth. So yeah, I feel like every time I am in that position of like helping someone else, I'm learning just as much as they are. I feel like.
Have you gone through the master's program there or anything yourself?
Yeah, so back in, I don't remember the year, 2018, 2019, one of those, I applied for the orchestration for film, TV, games program through ThinkSpace Education. And I only did the 1 year track. I was very dedicated to just, start and be done and, get it all in. And that was probably like the best experience I could have done. Funny enough, I didn't go to school. Like, my undergrad education was not in music, even though I took almost every single music class I possibly could. Uh, it was actually just in communication. And it was just like the music program at that school was fine, but it wasn't exactly what I needed. So I did the Berkeley Online uh, certificate that kind of jump started my journey into film music. And then once I got that under my belt, I went into the ThinkSpace Masters, which was, again, fantastic. So
So, did you get into music right out of your undergrad or did you start down another career path?
uh, I didn't know what I wanted. Uh, I just kind of did communication because I was like, well, that's useful. You can't overdo communication. So I figured, let me start with that and let me uh, see where that goes. But since I was a kid, I've always loved music. I've always been fascinated by the behind the scenes. If you threw on, like before, when DVDs had like the two discs and the second disc was special features and all of that, that was the first thing I cared about. I didn't care about necessarily the movie right away. I wanted to know about the special features, and I would always look for, how did they do the music? I specifically remember like what was it? The Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and there was a quick segment on the music, and I was like, man, I wish this was longer. So I always knew that like I just had to do something with that. And I'm really happy that I just went for it after I graduated.
Out of all the work you've done, is there any project that you're most proud of or had the most fun working on?
Uh I would so funny enough, it was a project that I didn't get paid for. It was a collaboration with a really good friend of mine, and he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, I'm really like he has more of a film background and just kind of editing background, and he was like, "I want to work together and put together like a tribute video for Star Wars, and just like Han Solo, and Leia Organa, and just like their love story over all of the movies, and just like put together this tribute video." And I was like, that sounds cool. I don't really know how I'm gonna top or even compare to what John Williams wrote, so I don't know what to do with that, but that sounds cool. And I think the most rewarding, so this is probably the most rewarding project I've done because it allowed me to just explore the music, explore themes, and expand on them in ways that I think resonated with me. And I think that was my first time that I felt like, oh, s- I can learn from what these composers are doing by just like diving into all of their themes, all of the music that they write for these characters and for these situations, and like how do I interpret that? And even though it was like just more of a passion project and nothing uh nothing like necessarily came out of it, I would say that I learned a lot specifically from that project.
You mentioned collaborating. I was curious how much of your composing work are you the sole composer versus collaborating with other composers?
uh for me, a majority of it is just by myself. um there was a project that I did where I was brought on. It was an indie film called Flying the Coop, and I was brought on because I guess the other composer had maybe scheduling and couldn't finish the film. And it's funny because almost everything that I've worked on is because of a friend or a friend of a friend or someone saying, "Oh, I need do you know like I need someone to write music. Do you know somebody?" And they'll say, "Oh yeah, Robert does that." So that was the one that like I kind of came in as a secondary composer, but otherwise it's usually just a friend reaches out to me specifically, and we can work together.
That seems to be a common trend with all of the composers that I've met is a lot of the work comes down to your networking and your friends and timing and patience. There's almost no getting around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because that does kind of lead into like um what I help other people and other composers with through my own mentorship and like the strategy sessions. Um, a lot of time, the number one problems that I hear people say is like, one, I don't like the way my music sounds, but also I don't know anyone. I don't know where to begin. And it's funny because you know more people than you think you do, even if it isn't a direct like, oh, I know a director that needs a composer or needs music. It isn't always as straightforward as that. It's you might know someone that you went to high school with that is adjacent in the field, and if you just reach out to them and say, "Hey, I know that you're doing this. I want you to know, like, I'm actively looking for work. I am a composer. Do you know anyone? Not even do you need someone, but do you know anyone in your field that might need some music?" It becomes like this ever growing spider web of friend of a friend, and you never know just who's gonna be the one to reach out to you.
Can you talk more about your mentorship program and what that's like, how long you've been doing it?
Yeah, so uh I do what I call one-to-one strategy sessions, and these are just like, hour-long sessions that we can hop on a call and just like really talk about the the deeper problems that you're struggling with. Like I said, a lot of times people will start with a surface level problem that is significant. Like usually it is like, I don't like the way my mock-ups sound. I don't like uh it's not, I don't like the way the mix is coming out. It's not sounding like the way in the car, the way it does in my studio. And these are all like workable problems. But a lot of times it does come down to the confidence. And I want, like, usually once we're in a strategy session, that's what we're talking about. It's more about like, let's figure out the root of this problem. Like, why specifically don't you like the way this sounds? Why, whatever it may be. And it could be like, coming up with a plan. All right, there's a lot of problems that you're facing right now. Let's see what the best next one is to get you one step closer to where you want to be. So that's one side of the coaching or like the strategy sessions. The other is really figuring out the kind of work that you want to take on that is fulfilling and sustainable. Um, it took me a very long time to figure out that like I'm not the kind of composer that wants to take on any and everything that comes my way. I would much rather say no to most projects as long as that gives me the opportunity to say yes to the project that like actually excites me. Um, I think a lot of people see AAA composers and say, I want that. But a lot of a lot of composing is the journey itself, and like a lot of it is you in your room alone. And if you're not enjoying that process, if you're not enjoying the people that you're working with, then that's just not something that I'm interested in, even if it means I have to turn down projects. So a lot of, to get back to the point, is that's the core of the strategy sessions that I try to uh focus on pretty much.
Is that, do you people sign up just kind of one session at a time, or is there a long term?
uh I've kind of revamped it a few times. I think the long term, uh, I've tried that, but I think people aren't, like, right out of the gate. I think they are more hesitant to want to do that, especially when they aren't 100% convinced that their problem is confidence, or they don't necessarily want fulfilling. They just want work, Um, so right now, I offer one to one. I want to be able to connect with the person and give them that out. If I'm not the right fit for them, then you know what, no commitment there, it's all good. um but if students have more of an ongoing, uh not situation, but prefer something more ongoing, then it's kind of like, all right, let's figure something out. Let's do 6 months and let's figure out a price point that works for you. But I actually am, because this is so much more granular and very specific to composers that want uh, career advice, basically, which a lot of composers don't necessarily go out saying, all right, time to personally develop my music career. I am working on now a like community membership as well that is a lot lighter, a lot less focus on the career, but maybe let's just talk about those top level problems too. Can someone give me feedback on my music? Um, that way I can kind of help most people wherever they are in their journey. And this is something that I'm currently working on developing right now, mainly because a lot of the students that I work with through ThinkSpace, when they finish the program, they usually are still looking for some sort of like, what do I do now? And I'm hoping that this could be a solution for them if they're interested. So,
How has your experience been with the YouTube channel?
yeah, the YouTube channel, I think, started everything. Um, I don't think I would be doing anything that I'm doing today without my channel. And that's not to say that, like I'm nowhere near, if you look at vanity metrics like subscriber counts and your view, like it, it's important, but it also isn't. So like I'm still, looking at my numbers, hoping I reach that 5,000 mark. But the relationships I've gotten from the people that watch the channel, that are subscribers or even non-subscribers, people that have discovered the channel but just like, I guess, like my style or the way I present things, um it really has been life-changing, for lack of a better term. I think it's because of the channel that I've been able to connect with developers like Cinesamples, East West, Spitfire, Westwood. It's because of the channel, and also I think the masters, because I was a student that then shared just what I know. Uh, it was because of that they said, "Hey, let's work together on this boot camp." Um, it's because of the channel that I now am part of a music mastermind with other composers and musicians that like we kind of just started off as other content content creators on YouTube, but we also have a passion for like the business side of things, and we literally met up and went to Montana for a weekend. So it's YouTube is at the core, and I am very grateful that I decided to pursue it. And even when things are down, or views are down, subscribers are down, like that doesn't matter to me, because like of the outside effects that have come from the channel.
Has your strategy with YouTube changed over time?
I would say so. As much as I want to say, like subscribers don't matter, of course I'm looking at the subscriber count, but it's funny because I started off the channel doing uh mainly just like library VST reviews and walkthroughs of the stuff that I already had. I didn't have any connections with developers at that point. It was just like, I'm starting, I don't know what to really talk about. Let me talk about this library. And funny enough, that did very well. Um, I would say that gave the channel a boost, but also it wasn't fulfilling. Um, if I only focused on these channel reviews or walkthroughs, I noticed that a lot of people would come just for the thing and not necessarily for me. And so if I said something wrong, or if I didn't mention something, or if I didn't mention how it compared to another developer, it became very much like just a heated topic. And, it wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted it to be. Um, and around this time, I started surveying a bunch of composers. I started talking one to one with a bunch of composers, like, what are you struggling with? What's going on? And that was kind of the shift on the channel where I started thinking about, oh, these people are really struggling with their confidence. These people are really struggling with just not knowing what to do next or where to begin. And so I shifted the channel focus to that. And of course, uh, everything dipped. Nothing would, no one, because no one is searching for like life advice as a musician. And even though that was almost 100% of the feedback I got when talking to a bunch of different composers. And so for the past year or so, I actually struggled trying to find like my identity on YouTube. Um, and it's funny that more recently, I just kind of said, you know what, maybe there's some sort of middle ground. And maybe I just use YouTube as a way to share my interests, share who I am, and just like not try and solve everyone's problems because that's what they're telling me their problems are, but just share what I like. And so that's what I did actually with my most recent video, which was a Thunderbolts film score kind of just discussion. Like it was kind of an analysis, but it also was just me talking about these things that I noticed. Like, oh, look at how they reuse the theme here. And funny enough, that has become the number one video on my channel in the past 5 years, like ever. And it's crazy to see. I think because I just shared what I liked. I talked about behind the scenes things, which is what I literally loved as a kid anyway. And I think from this point on, I really want to incorporate that into the channel a bit more. Um, and I think that'll resonate with people, whether you're a musician or, have never touched an instrument, never sang anything in your life, but you still appreciate film, TV, games, and everything that goes into it. Music being one of the things. So, I'm hoping for the best with this shift.
Nice. I saw that you were talking about how good that video did, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see that because then you learn more about what does well, and then you can do better overall, or at least grow the channel more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing I've noticed is just how small the composer world and community seems to be. So, um, and the samples. So, for example, Kevin Manthe, he started Triumph Audio, and I had the privilege of talking to him. And then I learned that he was involved as a ThinkSpace tutor as well. Um, and then I got to talk to Mike Patty, who turns out he's actually a really close personal friend with Kevin Manthe too. Then I saw you did some stuff on Cinesamples and Museo, so it is interesting how close knit the whole community is.
Yeah. I love it. I love that it's not like too big. I love that there's like, oh, you know this person? Like, oh, let me introduce you, or let's hop on a call because of our mutual connection. Um, yeah, I really do love it. And you see it especially not only in music, but also like just as a YouTuber. You know, oh, this person? A lot of people usually will say like, oh, Zach Heidi or Ryan Leach or, Mattia Chiappa. And these are all like people that all are somehow connected. Um, it's fantastic. And I also, just because you brought up Mike Patty, he obviously is the founder of Cinesamples. They did Museo. And funny enough, it was through the channel that I got to connect with the Museo. I got to connect with the team, and like they're fantastic. Like I just what makes me want to say yes to doing a developer, review or whatever, especially now where it's not my biggest focus on the channel, is can I connect with the people, the developers, the team? Like does their mission resonate with me? Do I resonate like in a back and forth? Like, do they seem like people that are just like creatives that want to share what they're working on? And if that's the case, then sign me up because I love that. And I've gotten to know Mike a bit, because of just the content I did and our connection through Museo. Um, it truly is just fantastic.
So, how is your time split up between all this stuff? You mentioned right now you're focusing a lot on the Think space. How about kind of before, and what are your plans after this?
Yeah. So I think in the immediate near term, uh, my number one goal is to get uh, the community membership off the ground. I would like to have that done, ideally by end of month, early July, um, and then I would like to again rely back on my network, see if I can reach out to friends or friends of friends to say, hey, I'm now actively searching for uh, music work. Ideally, I would like to do that within a 3-month span, because in September I will be a father and my entire schedule will be shifted. So I want to get some, final gigs and just like personal projects done before then.
Huge congrats. So it sounds like this is your
Thank you.
first one.
Yes, it is. So
I've got two little ones myself, two little girls. The oldest one just turned 2. And I can tell you your schedule will absolutely be in control by the babies. I'll say this though, it's your time becomes a lot more valuable. The 1 hour you do get, you get to plan it out, and it's very important, and you become very good at time management. So when your time does free up as they get older, you're gonna be like a super efficient person.
that's fantastic to hear because my number one thing was like, how am I going to do everything? How is this going to work? But I totally see that, time management, that 1 hour really counts.
You have these Notion templates too. Can you talk about those?
Yeah. So, uh, around the time that I was really talking to the composers and trying to get a feel for what the struggles were with them, um, I was also trying to put together, like, at that time, I was also really into Notion and just discovering it. And I was trying to make a template that worked for me as a composer. And I tried creating something that kind of touched on a lot of different pain points. So, for example, the big one that I have is called the Maestro Mind Accelerator, and this is just like this is me in a template. This is all the stuff I love, all the stuff I care about, all the stuff that I might use day to day or might need to refer back to when necessary. And so basically, this is like, all right, I need help managing my projects. Any project that comes in, it could be music related, it could be, something related to your health. Like it doesn't matter. I wanted something streamlined that helped me manage projects. Then I realized, okay, well, I need to figure out a way to manage contacts and leads and people that are reaching out to me. So let me develop something that, manages I reach out to this person, I'm awaiting a response. Or, you know, this person, this cold lead is now warming up. So let me mark them as a warm lead, that kind of thing. Um, and it just grew, it grew into uh as someone that just loves learning and education, as you might have guessed just from my ThinkSpace experience, like I take a ton of courses just because I love it. And so I said, let me add in a course section where I could just take notes and, organize all the different courses I have. Um, One of the really cool things that I love is what's called like their weekly genre exploration challenges. And so, um, I basically took what I have as like a free offering, my film composer's recipe book, which just goes through like, this is the basics of action music and horror and fantasy. And I kind of turned that into a weekly repeating uh, challenge, essentially, where you can, all right, this week I have to write an action track, and it gives you prompts and it gives you like tips on what to look for, or at least like what past action music has used or done in the past. And it's just grown. It really, it's anytime I can think of something new that is actually helpful for composers, I try to add it in, or at least like simplify so that it just works.
Out of all your products and services and your YouTube, is there anything that's the best selling or anything that is your largest revenue stream?
I would say, funny enough, it's not YouTube, or at least directly YouTube. Um, like people say, all right, once you monetize YouTube, you get all the ads and or AdSense, and that is just not that is not any any form of income for me. So what I would say is probably my biggest source of income would be something like the template, the Mastermind Accelerator template. It would be the strategy sessions, mainly because I am the one who gets to determine the value of my time. which I do place a high value on. And it took years to figure out what was the sweet spot for that. Um, and then it also kind of, oddly enough, it kind of freed me up to really focus on the projects that I want to focus on. So honestly, I don't use or rely on um, film scoring gigs as the biggest source of income, but it is fulfilling when I get to say yes to something and not have the pressure of, well, this has to work. I have to make sure everything goes through because this is such a large income source. I get to say yes to the things that I find enjoyable and get paid for it. And it's that I think is fantastic. I love that. But yeah, I would say it's kind of spread out for the most.
Are there any big lessons you've learned about business or marketing along the way?
I would say that there's almost like a bell curve when it comes to getting started with your music business, with trying to market yourself. You start off not knowing a lot, and you start doing your research and you start finding the books and the YouTube channels that all give you like the this is how you market, this is how you X, Y, and Z. And it's great, but it's overwhelming. And I think a lot of people get all the information that they need, but then will struggle still that like, oh well, the industry's changing and now you have to learn something totally new, or this isn't working anymore. And you're trying so hard to stay on top of things, and then you kind of come back down and you realize that the most success I've had in my business is when I didn't try so hard. Is when I, you know, I approached it with like a like I'm not treating this as a hobby. I'm not treating this as, you know, without any kind of structure or plan in place, but I'm treating the business as something like just talk about my experience. Just don't try and solve everyone's problems. Don't try and even if you're not like kind of on my end where I am, where I do talk and do one-on-one calls with composers, like even if you're a composer trying to get work in the industry, don't be the composer for everybody, you know? No, understand what you do best and ask people what is it about me that you would say my strengths are, and people will tell you things that surprise you and lean into it. And you know, if you're a composer trying to share your work and you're struggling because no one is interested in what you have to do, like what is it about you that you can share online, through an email, at conferences, at whatever it may be, and just share your work. Just share who you are. If you're funny, be funny. If you are uh if you care very much about the mock-up quality of your mock-ups and that's something you're really good at, say, you know, this is what I did. And don't go into it with like an educational necessarily perspective and like this is how you do this and this is how you do that, but just say this is what I did, and people will want that. People will say, "Oh, I want what you have," you know, instead of you trying to convince them of that. Um, that I, this is very top of mind for me just because of the channel, and so I feel very strongly about it. But I would say that's definitely been top of mind.
That's interesting, and it kind of makes sense. Don't try and convince people and portray yourself as a subject matter expert. Just talk about it, and people will decide that on their own. You know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
How about your personal music tastes? If you're just in the car driving, what are you listening to?
I am listening to probably anything by Michael Giacchino, anything by Oliver Arnolds, uh, anything that is, well, depending on the mood, it can either go just like really off the wall, like Ludwig Göransson style music, or it could just be like really heart-wrenching, emotional, like soft piano. So, depending on the mood, I can vary, but like my go-tos are Michael Giacchino, Oliver Arnold's, John Powell, um, and more often than not, it is a film, TV, video game score. So, you know, not surprising there, I feel like.
Well, before we go, is there anything else you want to share or plug?
Uh yeah, I mean, if one, I really want to thank you for having me on. It's really cool to, just blab on about what I do because a lot of what I do is so internal and like I feel like I'm just talking to myself in a way, but it's great to just like share it with somebody. But yeah, if anyone who is watching um you know wants to connect even more, of course I have the strategy session if you want more of like the deep dive. um Sign up for the membership, which is right now there should be a wait list going on, so if you're interested in more top level, let's get you some feedback. Let's do some workshops, master classes, things like that. Um, the wait list is up and ready. Um, and if you're not looking to spend any money at all, I also have like my free tools, which I kind of all have on one page. It's where I have my film composer recipe book. It's where I have my free Musio template for Logic Pro. I if you're not looking for spending anything, I also want to make sure I have something for you as well as the channel, the YouTube channel.
And that YouTube channel is Robert Rodriguez Music, and the
Yes.
website is robertrodriguezmusic.com.
Yep. Anywhere Robert Rodriguez music, you should find me. If you don't include the music, you might just find Robert Rodriguez, the director. So, big difference there.
Well, Robert, thank you for sharing your time. It was great learning about you, learning from you, and I wish you great success with your new family and your business. And thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much.